Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Sage. I'm the Executive Director of the Area Augmented Reality Enterprise Alliance, and welcome along to our latest Fireside Chat. And I'm really excited to have a long-term kind of friend and person who's been working with the area, Elizabeth Barron. So, Elizabeth, let's get down to it. Please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your role.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Elizabeth Barron, and I work at Unity Technologies, and my role at Unity is to bring together industry and real-time 3D and really get into that immersive aspect of cross-functional collaboration and communication. So my title is Lead of Solution Architecture for Industry. And it's a fantastic job. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really glad to stay in the industry space. And prior to that, I led global immersive realities at Ford Motor Company at the end of my career, but I had a 30-year-long career at Ford. And probably 2/3 of that was directly related to VR starting in 1999. So a long, 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 long history.
And an amazing history, so thank you. So I'm going to start with a really nice high-level question for you, Elizabeth. And what are the unique benefits of XR for industry?
Well, I'm really glad you asked because I think when we get at the unique benefits, it opens up a lot of the capabilities. And so if you think about the way industry has used CAD for design and engineering, it's, it's three-dimensional, but you rotate a model on a flat screen. You look at things that are in relation to the things around them. You study specific problems that are germane to the field that you're in and your expertise. But there's not a way in most traditional design and engineering tools to understand other aspects of form and function. And so I really like that we're starting with that question because I think it's just so fundamental to opening up all the value. Because what happens in immersive environments is you become part of the environment that you're in, and the way that you evaluate things becomes personal, even if it's a scientific evaluation, because you personally can relate to that data directly in a way that's very meaningful and impactful. And let's say you're studying oil and gas deposits on, somewhere, and you think, well, how can I personally relate to that? But you do develop a mental model and a mind map of how you can understand that. And when you act and then things react in that environment, you can make smarter decisions. And of course, like in automotive, if you can become personally inside that vehicle or around the vehicle or understand the environment that it's in, that's much more profound than looking at something on a big power wall, spinning around a model and trying to understand proportion and things like that. So I think there's a very discounted benefit of immersive technology, and that is that personal relationship that you have with data. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is the amount of data that you can look at in a very, very short period of time. Like in a 30-minute study, like when I was at Ford, we could look at, all kinds of weather conditions. We could put it in the vehicle in different environments. We could have different configurations of vehicles, and that's in 30 minutes. And all of that data could be based on real data that was engineered and designed, not, what if data, which of course, what if data, like proposal data, that's just like, trying to understand, themes and like greater concepts is good too. But that amount of data that you can relate one to another to do cross-functional understanding is amazing. And in the end, what that gives teams is the ability to understand other teams. not only understand your own data, but understand how your data relates to everybody else's data and how everybody else's data relates to yours. And so if there are problems, you can start to develop solutions because you can better understand than like being handed a spreadsheet that has like red numbers on it because this is bad. And then asking an artist to try to fix that somehow.
It's amazing. I think there's this, I love this little insight that I often see, I'm sure you have done. But person first puts on an AR headset, they kind of sit there and look at it as if they were either at a desktop or they're just looking at the kind of 2D data. And then after a while, they suddenly, they can get up, they can move around, they're looking at all sorts of different angles. And suddenly, like you said, it brings them to life, really.
It does. It does. And it's like that. I think in the natural world, in the way that we go through life, we use our bodies in a way that helps us understand our world. So we like move, we do those things that you just talked about, and we relate physically and mentally to our world around us through this vessel that we're in, right? And when that same concept is applied to virtual environments, it allows us more insight. And then when the data is rich and true, it's just an amazing amount of impact on you to be able to make decisions and understand.
Which actually brings us on to the next question, Elizabeth. And you talk about the kind of the data and the content and the assets. We people in the industry know kind of how tough that is. So can I ask you how to achieve a kind of integrated asset pipeline for XR? How do you control and manage these assets?
Yeah, so that is the most fundamental good thing you can do and barrier to adoption if you don't. So like, and so what I see too much is the people look at the cool things that XR can deliver, and then they use the tech and they develop um, a some type of something, an app, web-based interface that works for that cool problem that they want to solve. But a really good deep strategy would be to focus on the experience and focus on the process used to arrive at decisions rather than the technology that is available at any one time. And I know that might seem counterintuitive, especially like, we love tech, right? But if the data pipeline, I think it's really important to think about where your data comes from and how to get at a source of truth for any vertical that you're integrating technology in. And so by like vertical, I mean like, is it design? Is it user experience? Is it ergonomics? Is it verification? Is it manufacturing process capability? All of those areas have unique data. Some of it relates, but there are many parts of that data that are unique to that every certain discipline. And the key to a data pipeline is integrating the data as close as you can to the source of truth, and then automating that pipeline, and then making it part of how you manage your data. So like if I think back, because like, I'm so old. So I remember, I'm just kidding, but I remember I remember what we were doing at Ford to try to get CAD data to all come together. And we had this team of people that were trying to just get suspension data with engine data, with body data, and it was this huge problem. And that is very analogous to where we are now, because we're not big companies need to think about that data as foundational and put it in their pipelines and build in like they did with CAD data. They did like tessellated data of CAD models so that they could build digital models like nightly. But that data is still too heavy for immersive. So they need to think about what that means to get like real-time data, that's like real-time 3D data in their pipeline, in the way they manage their data. So I think that's where we need to be as a industry, basically. Like every industry needs to put that data in as well, so that you can have truth in the data because it comes from the source. So if it's analytic data from computational fluid dynamics, and you want to represent that, like airflow over a wing on an aircraft, that data should be also available in a form that's consumable by the immersive platform, as well as the heavy platform that you can look at on a power wall.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you're absolutely right, of course, Elizabeth. And one thing I find, speaking to lots of companies, they get stuck in this proof of concept kind of phase. And that's
Right.
quite often, it's a standalone app. They've kind of had to either develop the data, or they've extracted it from one system and put it into that one. It's not connected, the asset's not being managed. So it's never going to be integrated into the organization. It's always going to be standalone, which really means it's always going to be a proof of concept.
So one of the ways of going about deploying that tech is to look at the capability of the tools, and then the confidence that you have in getting an accurate assessment, and get buy-in from the people that would actually use the tech, which is so hard to do. It's just so hard. But I always kept a running list at Ford of what the tools could do, and what was new and coming, and where the how confident we were of getting a good answer. And then that was just a living document that would have like little circles of like partial, total, or empty. And that would be for every vertical. And then we could see how the technology was improving, and how we would be able to introduce new paradigms into different areas of the company based on how that technology was evolving. And so that is another part of the pipeline discussion, is like how, like making sure that you have the highest level of accuracy that you could possibly deliver, and then knowing when you can't deliver. Like it's just so important to make sure like you can do 80%, but not this 20%, because we're just still not there. And knowing what that is, and then knowing how to work in that system, I think is a really good way to go.
And that's amazing. Yes, thank you. I guess the last question, last couple of minutes, we've talked about some of the benefits, we've talked about some of the challenges. Have you got any kind of recommendations on how to successfully deploy XR into large industrial environments and things like that? You've already mentioned about the management of the pipeline, and I think that's really important, but any kind of other insights you can provide?
Yeah. So deploying, I think I alluded to this a little bit already, but like the deployment part at scale, and a deep deployment, really relies on knowing the functional interdependencies of the large company or medium company, whatever your company is that you're deploying into. And so if you're looking at a large original equipment manufacturer, an OEM, not only are there different tools, like there's a digital twin strategy, and they have some visualization and collaboration and robotics and simulation. How will what you're deploying for XR work with all of those tools? And how will you get data from them? And then there are the people. And so the people aspect is, I think, obviously the most critical, because in the end you want the people in the company to want to use this stuff. But it seems silly in a way, but there are different aspects of the way that people work that need to be considered, and that also comes into culture. So each, like, the artist community has a different culture than the engineering community. Like they just have different ways of relating to each other. They probably, maybe the engineers are like wrenching on engines at night if you're in automotive, and the artists are going to the art museum, or I don't know what it is, but the cultures are different, and so the way of relating the technology needs to be considered, and that is a dependency in how to adopt the technology, because the goal is that the technology should be relatable and usable, um, to each group, no matter how different they are.
Mm.
And then, I also think there's every industry that makes something, that produces a product, has a product development process and a manufacturing process by which they make their tech or their product or whatever it is. And knowing what that is, and then integrating, cross-functionally, is, I think, the key to deployment at scale. And then, being recognized as a step in the process is like the final thing, right? So it's like when gateways are met because you've done an immersive evaluation, then that's when things have really evolved to like the right, level of deep integration.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, it's like culture, process, people, and tools, those
Yes.
basic things. But then in that process, it's the deep integration.
Oh, that's amazing. Um, and thank you very much, Elizabeth. I think we've covered some really great areas there. Yeah, thank you very much for your insights, and look forward to working with you and speaking with you again soon.
Oh, well, thanks. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you hearing me out.
Thank you very much.
Bye.